Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Dailies on Equa Television, your morning program where we keep you up to date with the happenings from the Nigerian newspaper. I mean, today it's a beautiful and a rainy day if you are living in Jersey, and I believe it's a rainy season. So please do well to keep warm and then avoid anything that will make your head to be damp or any other thing so you don't cause discomfort to people around you. I am Stella Elisha Dash, and remember, you can follow the program through Facebook and YouTube. Drop your comment and your views on any of the story that is of interest to you. And I'll bring the program alongside Rachel Tansy. Good morning,
Good
Rachel.
morning, Sarah.
How you doing?
I'm fine, and you?
Great. How is the rain, the weather?
I love the rain, but it's cold, and then I just hope I don't fall sick.
You would, you would. I believe that. I mean, there's a lot of coffee and tea for you to take in. So we shall go through the paper, and I will be starting with the Metrics newspaper. And a big story: new minimum wage, fear of fresh strike looms, with the writer saying, Tripartite committee submits report to the federal government. Labour rules out strike on Tuesday, awaits Tinubu's decision. States need to weed out ghost workers. This is coming from the SDP, and I totally agree. If we are, canvassing or pushing for an increase in minimum wage, the need for weeding out ghost workers is very important. You can read more detail of that on page 7. And we also have here Afrexim Bank support Fidelity Bank acquisition of Union Bank UK with $40 million facility. More detail can be found in the paper. And also on the World Cup qualifiers, Benin Republic clips Super Eagles wings, beat Nigeria for the first time. That's a sad one. Well, you can read more detail of what actually happened during the match on page 16 of the Metrics newspaper. Financial sector stability, again, CBN allies fear, debunk rumor of revoking licenses of 4 alleged distressed banks, among which we have Polaris Bank, Unity Bank, and these are part of the 4 banks that have been, going through some distress following what happened to Heritage Bank. Still on Metrics newspaper, Southwest Governors-elect Sanwo-Olu as chair, adopt common agenda for region's prosperity. We didn't inflate fuel subsidy claim by 3.3 trillion naira, NNPC Limited cries out. We didn't inflate fuel subsidy claim by 3.3 trillion naira, NNPC Limited cries out. More detail in the paper. And on FEC, we have federal government and state local government areas to share 1.1 trillion naira in May. So far, 60 billion naira decline. So we need to know what actually happened, that there is a decline of about 60 billion naira. More detail of that you can find in the paper as well. Tinubu sack Arise as Police Service Commission chairman, and we have lawmakers propose 6-year single tenure for president and governors, as well as saying they wish that the election will be in a day. So, I mean, I know this will actually bring about a lot of reaction from Nigerians, and you can read more detail of that in the paper. We have on cyberbullying, very dark man beats bill condition. You can find more detail of what happened concerning the entertainment on page 14. And here we have the picture illustration of the Southwest Governors Forum, where we can see the Lagos State Governor that has been suggested as the chairman of the Southwest Governors Forum at Lagos House yesterday. And that's on a Metrics newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, Southwest Governors restate support for state police, appoint Sanwo-Olu as forum's chairman, adopt anthem for region. Founder of Stanbic IBTC Atedo Peterside retires after 35 years in service. Details can be found on page 7. Liquidity ban of power sector. We have this is coming from the finance minister. Liquidity ban of power sector from the finance minister. You can find details on page 7. The big story: 35 reps seek rotational presidency, single tenure of 6 years. The writer says institute over 50 reform bills. Details can be found on page 15. Federal government, states, local government share 1.143 trillion naira May revenue. NNPC LD's owns report on alleged inflated subsidy claims. Tinubu removes RSA as Police Service Commission chairman. Details can be found on page 30. Reps probe increase in electricity tariff today. Minister of Power discussed to make presentations. On Rivers crisis, Attorney General disagrees with court ruling on 26 Rivers Assembly members. Protest rocks on door over EFCC invasion of nightclubs. Police state government call for calm. Labour never contemplated 100,000 naira wage, let alone 62,000 naira. This is coming from the NLC. Debunks rumor of strike resumption today. Federal government receives report of new minimum wage from committee. Details can be found on page 30, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On this day newspaper, Southwest governors adopt a common agenda for region's prosperity. Economic integration, security, food production top priority at the meeting. And we have back State Police Sanwo-Olu emerges as the forum chairman. More detail of that on page 14. As well, still on the paper, we have FEC disburses 1.143 trillion naira as Federation account grossed over 2.324 trillion naira in May. More detail found on page 14. Lawmakers seek rotation at presidency, 6 years single term for president, governors in a proposed bill. And this is almost, I think, the fourth paper or the third paper we're taking. So, Rachel, I would like to hear your view on that. I know this is not the first time. I mean, this has been going on in the House. So we're seeing that they are actually, seeking that a rotational presidency, 6 years single term for president and governors in a proposed bill. And if you ask for my opinion personally about this, I do not think this is a bill that should see daylight, Rachel, because I'm only seeing this bill, it's heading towards doom for Nigeria. Imagine if we have a 6 year single term. So that is to say, if you want to run for 2 terms, we're seeing one person running for 12 consecutive years. And these are the kind of the things that gave room to the coup we're seeing that I was just, last year we saw pockets of coup here and there. Niger at I think, was it with the other country, Guinea-Bissau or so, where we saw the coup that was happening over there. And there are a number of it, and that was when we saw fear in our African leaders, where we saw them rationing some of their, top-ranking military men. Some of them had to be sacked and all of that. And here we've seen reps suggesting that. Just yesterday I was applauding our reps for being the only lawmakers, as far as Nigerians are concerned, trying to make move, passing one bill or the other. But I do not see this bill as a way of making Nigeria to be a better place. The bill I was excited about was the bill where we are supposed to go back to the parliamentary system of government. That was a bill I was hoping maybe, just maybe, might see daylight, because we'll see check and balance happening. But the bill for having 6 years single term, honestly, I do not know what gave room to such a bill coming from the House of Reps.
So when you see democracy, I think that we are having our House of Representatives, lawmakers all together, really trying to tamper with democracy and what it is and what it stands for. And it's in this kind of scenario that I can't just help but make comparison and talk. Now, I might not call a country's name precisely, but I've seen a situation where a president just serves for 4 years and goes. 6 years is too long for us to deal with a government that is failing. 6 years is too long for us to deal with a government that is failing. I believe there's a reason why 4 years is a perfect time for a term. It's because after 4 years, we can say goodbye to an administration that haven't served us. While we've been having people having second tenures and having 8 years in Nigeria, is because there's a lot of election manipulation and rigging. Because once someone have made it for that first term, there's just a lot of strategizing, manipulation, putting in an INEC chairman, because yes, it might be called an electoral commission, but we've seen how election has been done in the past in the country. We've seen clearly a precedent that people wouldn't want to come back for a second term, forcing himself back to a second term. And you know what? People have to accept it and move. That is corruption. But now for us to have to sit down, 6 years, Sele, not 4 years.
In fact, people are looking for a way to make it 3 years.
And exactly. And dealing with a government that have nothing to offer you is scary on a lot of level. Because if by 2025, Tinubu's policies don't start showing anything, if our dollar doesn't appreciate, if we don't have refineries running and fuel pump price goes back to as low as 300, if Tinubu's policies don't have dividend, he has no business being a president for a second term. He has no business. And it's Nigerians' responsibility to say, go out. We need to put a competent person in it. So now imagine us waiting. And it's 2025, Tinubu's policies are not working. It's 2026, it's 2027. And we cannot do anything about it. We just have to keep going on with one bad decision after another till 2029. No, that is a punishment. And I don't know what the House of Reps are trying to derive from this. But I keep saying that what we need is not an extended tenure in office. What we need is not an extended... I've seen people do things in 4 years. And you wonder, are they not having the same time? Is our time different? Did they have 6 years and for some reason their hours is showing in 4 years? We've seen a lot done within a short period of time. We've seen government turn and change things around completely for people. We don't need 6 years for any... We don't need 6 years, Celia. And this is where I get, because these bills are being sponsored. Why are we not sponsoring the real deal? The real thing that needs to be changed. Why are we not passing bills? The real thing that is affecting this country. The real things that will make us grow. Why are we not? There are 101 things sitting down that needs to be made laws, constitution, that needs to be made bills, need to be passed, need to be read. The first, second, signed, and we move. Why do we have a government? Why do we keep having a government that is selfish on every other level? And it's almost like Nigerians cannot do anything about it, because it's one disappointment after the other, because they are representative. That is why I keep saying, what can you do, Sele, in this kind of situation? Rather than sitting down and praying that perhaps our reps will have sense and probably not pass this. What else can we do when the people we have voted are disappointing us on every level? Are you trying to tell me that there are not other things for you to put in this country? Look at security. What bills are you passing to curb insecurity? What about education? What bills are you passing to stop Japan of our medical doctors and practitioners, nurses, health workers, and the rest? What bills are you putting in to make sure that, give or take, in certain years to come, in 5 years to come, unemployment will be drastically reduced in the country? What bills? What are the things that we really, really need to put in place? We might be seeing on the business sector, on the business side, that we might be having a trade surplus. But for a country of over 200 million people, if your surplus is not up to 20 trillion now, you're not making money as far as I'm concerned. It might be a trade surplus, but is it enough to cancel our deficit?
Of course.
If it's not canceling our deficit, then we are still where we are. It might be gains, but that gain is not good enough to take us anywhere. What are you putting in place? What agricultural policies are you putting in place to fight food insecurity, as we are seeing it, and all of that? And you call yourself lawmakers, you call yourself representatives, and you're not even speaking the voice of Nigerians. You're not representing Nigerians, because that is not what the people want. You just have a mind of your own. Then who are you representing? Sarah, there's so much to say about this, because it comes with a lot of mixed feelings, emotion, and you just can't help but wonder, where are we heading towards with bills like this? And we'll just have to wait and see to the end what will be the outcome eventually.
Well, just like you said, we just have to wait. So let's wait and see how this whole bill will go. Still on this day newspaper, Labour's deadline for new wage expires today. LCCI calls for flexibility in negotiation. State urged the federal government to gradually phase out electricity subsidy in power sector. Say money spent on inefficient costs. More detail in the paper. And here we have where we're seeing the Governors Forum doing a strategic partnership for people's welfare. And you can take a closer look at the paper and see what all of the stories are all about. And that's all on this day newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, the big story, alleged abuse of women and children. Substantiate your allegations, Defense Headquarters challenges AI. Says AFN is a professional military that operates within ambit of international law of armed conflict. Details can be found on page 2. And FAAC, federal government, state, local government share 1.143 trillion naira for May. Tinubu firmly committed to youth empowerment and assurance from Vice President Shettima. Judgment enforcement, ECOWAS court dismisses Dasuki's suit against federal government. Respect human rights, DIG charges police officers. On minimum wage, tripartite committee submits report to the federal government. Prioritize education, healthcare of insurgency survivors, Amnesty International tells the federal government. Details can be found on page 4. We have a picture story, a cross-section of Nigerian girls at the special parliamentary day organized by Value Female Network Africa in partnership with Osun State House of Assembly. This happened yesterday, and that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
On Vanguard newspaper, the big story, 10th National House of Assembly. 24 senators have no bill in 1 year. 85 senators sponsor 279 bills. Bamidele leads with 23 bills. We have Barrow led with 17 bills. Sani Musa, 8 bills. Umahi sponsored 1 bill before accepting the ministerial appointment. And now the question is, what is happening to the remaining 24 senators that are yet to even pass even a bill? Well, we have to call them back home and ask them what really is happening. There are a lot of things, just like Rachel raised earlier. We have a lot of bills that really need to be raised in the House. So you can read more detail of that on page 5. Still on Vanguard newspaper, banks borrow 10.9 trillion naira from CBN in 1 month as deposit rise to 120%. NDDC proposes 1.911 trillion naira as the 2024 budget. PDP membership, 25 lawmakers, Rivers government disagree over court order because the court have ordered that the former speaker should come back to the House. And here we're seeing that the 25 lawmakers have disagreed with that. So you can read more detail of what actually is happening in Rivers State on page 10. And we have the ALGON rejects 62,000 naira minimum wage. More detail found on page 14. Rep sponsors single tenure of 6 years for presidents and governors. Tinubu replaces the IGP Arisa with Arugogu as the chairman, Police Service Commission. And on minimum wage, SGF received Triple T committee report. Sanwo-Olu emerges as the chairman of the Southwest Governors Forum. And we also have a column for sports where we can see Benin Republic actually beat Nigeria 2-1 in the World Cup qualifiers. So we just hope that our hope will not be scrambled totally. You can find more detail of what happened in the sport industry there concerning the qualifiers on page 30. We have 2 picture story here, a courtesy visit to the NCDMB, and then we have a CNG project in Akwa Ibom State. So more stories can be found in the paper. And that's all on Vanguard newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, piecemeal restructuring. Raw as House revives single 6-year tenure bill after 4 failed attempts. Phase out electricity subsidy, 36 governors tell federal government. 4.8 million persons at risk of acute hunger in the Northeast, FAO warns. Bandits shoot soldiers, kill several persons in Niger and Katsina. Power crisis deepens as Gencos receive 4.7% of invoiced amount. Labour insists on 250,000 naira as state governors earn 6.71 trillion naira in 1 year. Details can be found on page 6, and then you wonder how can then the state governors say that they cannot pay more than 60,000 naira. Embattled Rivers lawmakers remain in PDP court rules. Youths protest EFCC's raid on Ondo nightclubs. Details can be found on page 8, and that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, minimum wage labor in season 250,000 naira awaits Tinubu verdict. NLC president berates governor, says president will do the right thing. So they are rooting that the president will actually do something. You can find more detail on page 28. Federal government services debt with $2.2 billion in 5 months coming from the CBN. And we see smuggled Nigerian petrol flood West African market, sells 1,007 per litre. With the rider here saying petrol hits 1,672 per litre in Benin Republic, and then in Cameroon is 2,062, in Liberia is 1,428, and then in Mali is 2,128 naira. And then we have 280,000 litres intercepted in Adamawa, Sokoto, Kebbi, Katsina, Borno, Taraba, and Ogun State. More detail of that can be found on page 2. Southwest Governors Forum insists on state police elect Sanwo-Olu as the chairman. Reps propose rotational presidency, 6 years single term. Police foil American suicide attempt on Third Mainland Bridge, and then 2.7 billion naira fraud. Ex-director testifies against Sirika. You can find that on page 14, and that's all on Punch newspaper.
On Daily Sun newspaper, no work, no pay, OPS threatens NLC, TUC. This is regarding strike. Details can be found on page 26. The big story, Constitution Amendment, reps propose 6-year single tenure for president and governors. Also, zonal rotation, 2 VPs, conduct of elections same day. You can find details on page 6. Southwest governors reaffirm support for state police. Federal government advocates harmonization of NIN, TIN for access to information. NDDC prepares for imminent flooding to build emergency shelter. Details can be found on page 27. Terrorists kill 4 policemen, 2 security corps officers, 20 others in Katsina. We've lost over 400 persons. Igbo community in Benue cries out. Details can be found on page 4. Rivers AG to 25 lawmakers after court ruling, you're no longer PDP assembly members. Details can be found on page 27. A picture story where we can see from left to right, governors Lucky Ayedatiwa of Ondo State, Ademola Adeleke of Osun, Seyi Makinde of Oyo, Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos, and firm's chairman Dapo Abiodun Ogun and Abiodun Ayebanji of Ekiti during Southwest Governors Forum meeting in Lagos yesterday. And that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, Finch upgrades Fidelity Bank's rating to positive. Southwest Governors Unite appoints Sanwo-Olu as the new chairman. Airtel Africa unveils 2024 sustainability report. VAT import duties and others yield decreased return in June coming from FEC. So maybe one of the reasons why the money that they are sharing, the allocation has actually decreased. You can find more detail of that on page 21. And then the big story for the Nigerian News Direct is on food insecurity. Nigerians battle economic hardship over hike in price of rams, foodstuff as inflation bites harder. And we're seeing that households spend 60% of income on food as import bills hit 1.4 trillion naira. Families shun Salah Ram low-key celebration eminent across the country. Of course, we know how much rams mostly go, especially in seasons like this, sometimes over 100,000 naira. So you can find more detail of what's happening concerning food insecurity on page 21. NNPCL Limited refers allegation of inflated subsidy claim. Access acquires majority stake in African Banking Corporation of Tanzania, detailed on page 7. We have two picture stories on the front page of the paper. You can do well to grab the paper and read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you. But before we move further, quite a lot to chew. What do you feel about the stories on the paper? Lawmakers are suggesting, 6-year single tenor. What's your own feel about it? It's a proposal, so we just hope that your feedbacks really matter a lot concerning what should be the next step, as well as we're seeing food insecurity, as well as Labour have said they are shunning the strike that rumor that was supposed to start today. So waiting for what the feedback will be from the president will determine what their next line of action will be like. So we will take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue with the paper analysis. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zoom on Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Welcome back. It's still the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories where we saw the lawmakers, House of Reps, suggesting a 6-year single term for presidents and governors, as well as we're seeing the issue of food security is actually going to affect the Salah celebration, as a lot of the Muslim faithful are maybe opting for a low-key celebration because of the hike of food prices and the number of commodities in the market. And as well as we're seeing that Labour is saying they will not be going on a strike until they hear from the president what his own view is concerning the new minimum wage. So we would love to hear your own views concerning any other story apart from this which we listed. You can drop your views on our Facebook handle, and then we'll do well to review it and see how we can, provide solution and recommendations on certain things that are happening in the country. I still have Rachel Tanzi with me in the studio. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sarah.
All right, we shall continue with the paper review, and right now we will be looking at the First News newspaper.
The big story on First News: minimum wage. No strike until we hear President Tinubu's decision, says Labour. Vows to reject 100,000 naira starvation wage as SGL receives tripartite committee report on minimum wage. NYSC portal crash. Prospective core members stranded in Cross River. Our vice president is missing, says Malawi government declares aircraft missing. Sanwo-Olu appointed chairman of Southwest Governors Forum. Coming from Kaduna, farmers bandits after collecting taxes still destroy our crops. Benin defeat Nigeria 2-1 top 2026 World Cup qualifier group. FAAC allocates 1.143 trillion naira federal, state, local government share May 2024 revenue. CBN refutes rumors of license revocation for Fidelity, Polaris, Wema, and Unity Bank. I haven't tampered with LG funds since I became governor. This is coming from Caleb Mutwang, Plateau State Governor. 35 reps champions 6-year single term for president governor electoral reforms. NNPCL dismisses allegations of inflated fuel subsidy payments, and that's all the news on First News newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the next paper, which is the Daily News Herb, where we have reps propose 6-year single tenure for president and governors. And the big story, which is on minimum wage, while Labour won't resume strike today, coming from Ajero. Tripartite committee submit their report to the federal government and waiting for a feedback. No plan to revoke Fidelity, Polarized, Wema, and Unity Bank's license, coming from the CBN. Sanwo-Olu elected Southwest Governors Forum chairman. I have not done PDP lest you bitter politics, coming from Fayoshe. Girls who flee Boko Haram captivity meet surrendered husbands in government camps. This is coming from Amnesty International. Governor Adeleke gives daughter 1-year ultimatum to marry. Well, you can read more detail of that in the paper. And we're seeing Tinubu sack police commissioner chairman Arise, and then Super Eagles coach Finidi George under fire after shocking defeat to Benin Republic. Russia sending Nigerians and other African students to war for visa renewal. This is a report. I hope that the Nigerian government can go and verify this report if it's really true that Russia sending Nigerians to war for visa renewal. This is a story that we should not just wave it to the side. We really need to look into it. How 9 governors spoiled assembly members with 15 billion naira car lages. This is coming from a report. Exotic XUV price ranges between 90 million naira and 68 million naira for each lawmaker. So we need to call these governors to table. I mean, they need to tell us what really happened. You do not have money to pay minimum wage, but you have money to buy cars for some of your lawmakers. I think something needs to be done about that. And as well, here we're seeing on the international scene, plane carrying Malawi's VP missing. So we hope that he will actually be rescued back, whatever the issue is that made his plane to be missing. And that's all on Daily News Herb newspaper.
On Teen Trust newspaper, NAPPS urges shift to digital education system. 6 students to represent Nigeria at 2024 Microsoft World Championship in US, and we have the faces of these 6 students. Nigerian student wins Cambridge Maths competition. You can start with the details on the front page. Column for lifestyle on page 7, career page 5, well-being on page 14, and then short stories on page 10. That's all the news on Teen Trust.
On Daily Independent newspaper, National Assembly invites stakeholders over airport concession. Union vowed to resist airport concession unless more detailed in the paper. And on national minimum wage, Labour may resume strike as deadline to federal government ends today. Rejects 62,000 naira offer, insists on 250,000 naira. Tripartite committee submits the report to SGF. More detail can be found in the paper. The big story, reps 6 single tenure of 6 years for president and governors. Rotation of presidency among the 6 geopolitical zones. More detail in the paper. Southwest governors adopt common agenda for regional prosperity. Sanwo-Olu becomes the forum chairman. Southeast among the highest in human trafficking, coming from NAPTIP. And then we have federal government, state and local governments shares 1.143 trillion naira May 2024 revenue. Again, CBN reassures on safety of banks. Tinubu appoint ex-DIG Agugu chairman of the PSC, that's the Police Service Commission. PDP silent as court declares pro-Wike lawmakers members. Court didn't say assemblymen are PDP members. Coming from the Rivers AG. CSO petition the NGC over Rivers High Court judgment. Detail found in the paper. Aircraft carrying Malawi's vice president missing. More detail can be found on page 6. And that's all in Daily Independent newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, Nigeria conducive for business. Eden tells multinationals Microsoft retains interest. Alleged 423 billion naira fraud, EFCC raises steam to probe El-Rufai and others. Tinubu yet to get minimum wage, tripartite committee report. CBN reaffirms financial stability of banks. Agungun replaces Arase as PSC chair. Details can be found on page 25. Eagles World Cup qualification shaky. Details can be found on page 31. Rivers G27 lawmakers remain PDP members, court rules. They are to make laws for state, says judge. State government falls RHC judgment, and coming from Lloyd verdict unassailable. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 4. The big story: Southwest governors go into massive food production. Region rejects Yoruba agitation. OK State Police, Sanwo-Olu is chair. Details can be found on page 4. And we have a statement: Commissioner for Agriculture of all the states should set up a working template which will ensure collaboration based on each state's comparative advantage. The last story on the Nation newspaper: Sirika's in-law failed to execute 2.8 billion naira contract. Ex-director tells court. Details can be found on page 6, and that's all the news on the Nation.
On Business Day newspaper, hospitals trim dollar cost to scale inflation hurdle. Diaspora Nigerians increasing tap to fill the void. You can find more detail of that on page 31. How illicit wealth finds home in Dubai real estate. And then we have fixed income market to outshine equity in the second half of the year. And we have Coronation Merchant Bank gets Fitch upgrade to be outlook stable. And then we have Otedo's pesticide resigned from Standard Bank Group Board. Lawmakers push for 6-year single tenure for president and governors. And we have a picture story as well here. You can do well to grab the Business Day and read more detail of other business stories of interest to you.
On Sporting Sun, the big story: 2026 World Cup qualifier. Anger humiliation as Eagles stumble. Nigeria remains winless, now 5th in Group C table. We have Adebami writes off team wants total overhaul. Moni Michel faults NFF Finidi for defeat. Valencia fans jailed 8 months for racist insult against Vinicius Jr. We have Al Ali ready to trigger Osimhen's 120 million euros release clause. Details can be found on page 6. Messi, Suarez at top of MLS jersey sales ranking. Haaland restates commitment to Man City. Details can be found on page 2. Real Madrid confirms participation in 2025 FIFA Club World Cup. Details can be found on page 3. On transfer, Dortmund, Juventus in contact over Sancho. Details can be found inside the paper. Guardiola rules out second stint at Barca. Ramsdale too expensive for Newcastle. And we have Tuchel rules self out of Man United job. Tragedy averted as Doma United players involved in accident. Players hospitalized. Details can be found on page 6. Newcastle to ready offer for Hanicho. Details can be found on page 6. Sina Alcaraz displays Djokovic in ATP rankings. Details can be found at the back page. And that's all the news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
Well, that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel, for doing this.
You're welcome, Sally.
Thank you to our viewers and our supporters and every other person that made this program a success. Until we come your way again tomorrow, please do have a great day ahead.